Hi, welcome everyone. Thank you all for coming. You guys can hear me, right? Yep. That's great. Yeah. Again, I'm going to talk about why I am excited about RedwoodJS lately. My software engineering journey started off as a PHP developer, actually. I built apps using the PHP frameworks Symfony and Laravel, but I was actually quick to ditch all of that once I discovered Webpack and React. This was back around 2017 when I worked at this startup that built online TV channels, and their stack was basically fully web-based, and they targeted all of these apps to run on platforms like iOS, Android, TV type of operating systems such as Samsung's Tizen OS, LG's WebOS, Amazon Fire Stick, Roku, you name it, Apple TV, and it all from one single Webpack configuration. Needless to say, I was impressed. I mean, the power of JavaScript is pretty obvious, and yeah, that's amazing, right? I mean, aren't we just blessed that we can write amazing things with JavaScript? It's an unparalleled ecosystem, and we basically can npm install our way to glory. And we pick and choose which tools fit our use cases the best, then glue bits and pieces together, and then without compromise, we aim for the best solutions. We adhere to web standards, optimize web bundles, bundle sizes, and get good lighthouse scores. So in all that flexibility and modularity lies the situation where you have to make a lot of decisions about which tools you use, how you use them, how reliable they are, how the TypeScript support is, how well they are regarded within the industry with your peers, whether it's a good decision right now for your project while you're starting, or whether it's a good decision later on when your team grows and you reach millions of users. Maybe most importantly, I think it's important that it's fun to work with. Because remember, we went to great lengths just so we don't have to write jQuery ever again. So these decisions are a lot, and they're not trivial. Maybe some of them are, but it's okay. So you can see the sun reflecting from my bald head. No, but some of these decisions are serious, and they affect real people and real users. So you really want to think about them thoroughly. But yeah, before you know it, you get stuck in analysis paralysis. Okay, sometimes it's not such a big problem. People tend to, don't repeat themselves, and they prepare some boilerplate type projects or starter packs, or start template repositories. But have you considered, if you do that you might be among the hundreds or maybe thousands of developers that build their own version of, let's say, Create React app or something else similar. This whole ceremony of setting up your new project can take really a long time. And my point is, we have seen how the industry has continuously raised the level of abstraction to allow developers spend more time delivering functionality and less time writing low-level infrastructure. Convention over configuration, according to Wikipedia, is a software design paradigm used by software frameworks that attempt to decrease the number of decisions that a developer using the framework is required to make without necessarily losing flexibility and dry principles. This concept was introduced by the Ruby on Rails framework author to describe the philosophy behind the framework. It is related to earlier ideas, such as sensible defaults, and in my opinion, I think this philosophy has kind of been missing in the JavaScript ecosystem. So there has been notable attempts to create a true full-stack framework like that in JavaScript. Notable examples are, of course, Meteor.js, Adonis.js, and Blitz.js, but they seem to miss the mark on some crucial points, in my opinion. I believe RedwoodJS seems to do it right. And they started development around 2020, and they hit their 1.0 around April last year, 1 year ago now. It's built on top of mature and proven technologies, nothing exciting or cutting edge or new, but it provides a good workflow and to build applications that are still considered modern. And I'll share some of the features. If you install a new project with Redwood, you get a mono repo setup with your own workspaces. And the framework actually deliberately decouples the client and server, unlike the transition that they've briefly talked about. Zooming in on the API side, you get a directory for your Prisma ORM where you define your schema, you get where you store your migrations. You have another directory for your GraphQL where you define your types, your mutations, and your queries. And you do that in the regular schema definition language. And there is also a folder for services. It's the place where your GraphQL query resolvers reside. So you don't spend time actually mapping stuff. Your convention is you name, for example, your Prisma model comments, and then you name your GraphQL and your service file comments. You name your GraphQL query get comments. You name your query resolver function get comments. Moving on to the client side, you have conventions that are familiar to most. You have your folders such as pages and your components folder. You get a single route file and some sweet auto-generated TypeScript types. Routing is implemented through a single file, and it has features such as a named routing. Of course, you need some dynamic routing. You have route bundling, so you can like wrap a layout component, and you have also a feature to mark children for pre-rendering if you need some static site generation during build time. And there is perhaps my favorite route guard for authentication, and you can also make sure that certain routes are only available for like specific roles. It's also shipped with powerful CLI commands, and you can set up and configure features to, for example, set up your favorite UI library. Supported out of the box are Tailwind, Mantine, and Chakra UI. And it also has generator types of CLI commands to generate some boilerplate type code that you don't want to write yourself. For example, if there's one powerful one I like, it's the scaffolding one. So if you type that, you can create, read, write, update, and delete functionality around a specific database table. So, for example, you need to write Redwood generate scaffold and then the name of your Prisma model to get all of this functionality out of the box and get started real quick. Cells is another feature. It's a declarative approach to data fetching by providing some conventions of various states in the data fetching lifecycle. And for the ones familiar with Apollo client, much of the interface is what Apollo's use query hook provides. And to get a good feel about this framework, these are some of the features that I chose to highlight. But obviously, it's a full stack framework, and the scope is really wide, so there's lots more to discover. A little bit about the people behind the framework. It's in capable hands. Most notably, one of the maintainers and co-author is Tom Preston Werner. He is known for the TOML file configuration format, Gravatar, the Jekyll CMS. He's also the author of the SAMFIR specification that we use. And he is also a former CEO of GitHub, which he co-founded and built with Ruby on Rails. Needless to say that this RedwoodJS framework is well funded. They also have a very nice community, and some of the core maintainers are not shy to provide direct support through Discord or community forums. So, the downsides. Of course, being an opinionated framework, it comes with downsides. The first one that for me comes to mind is that it's not a simple framework. It's quite an investment to learn and to get used to its conventions. But it's backed, I believe, with the right decisions that will pay off in the long run when your app grows and you become successful with it. Another one is that being opinionated at all is that they don't cover 100% of the use cases. I have already had a couple of moments that I had to dive into the source code to observe what the behavior is for certain functionality so I can extend it, which was doable. Another one is that the docs, even though they're good, it's not that beginner friendly. So you cannot expect, if you are trying to build a team, that you can get junior developers in and be well acquainted with the framework. And again, it's an excellent framework for building CRUD applications. But if your main concern is server-side rendering, or not rendering in the front end, then there are definitely better options out there that we'll explore tonight. So if you would like to get started, I would definitely point to the tutorial. It's great. It's a written type of tutorial. To me, in my opinion, it's the best out there, period, of all framework tutorials that I've read. In one of the interviews, one of the guys mentioned that they wrote the tutorial while still implementing some of the core framework features to get a sense of what a good developer experience would be like. So that's nice. And of course, try it out. Try building something, and you can easily deploy it on the edge using services like Vercel or Netlify and cloud functions, or roll your own GNU/Linux server. And that was a short introduction to RedwoodJS. I hope you find it interesting and want to try it out sometime. If you have Are we doing questions, by the way?
You have some time for questions, indeed. I was just about to say, we have time for 1 or 2 questions. If somebody has a question.
If you have a question later on, then feel free to reach out to me, and then we can talk, for sure.
You have a question?
Are there any big projects working with Redwood? Are there showcases?
There are a bunch of showcases, not big ones that I think I know of, but one of the things they do is that they try to fund, they have a foundation, and they try to fund initiatives, especially for climate-related technologies. So there are definitely production use cases there.
Like, as I've seen, like it's still based on React. Like I see a lot of React in there.
That's right.
Yeah. So one concern I have usually working with the meta frameworks is that how do you update React? Like because Redwood it still should have some builders around it, right? So if React goes to a higher version, Redwood should support it, right? Like I have the same experience with NX when Next.js goes on higher version. NX has to have a runner for it to support the higher version. Like, how does it with Redwood? Like, is it like a direct using React dependency, or Redwood has to go on a higher version to support higher version of React?
No, like the React is like a peer dependency. It's not extending from React. I haven't witnessed how you would upgrade to React yet, but the way they do their framework releases is they advise to run Redwood upgrade, and then it does some things behind the scenes for you to upgrade. And I assume if it comes to the point where React needs to be upgraded as well, it updates the package.json version.